Pour Monsieur Ellis.
Our next speaker will be Mr. Ellis, followed by Mr. Berthold, and then Ms. Kalig and Mr. Villemur.
Good morning, colleagues. It's a very significant day in Canadian history, perhaps the most significant security breach in the history of Canada. And as the Canadian CSIS would say, this is a serious and credible threat to Canada and to Canada's economy. And why is that, Mr. Chair? When we look at many things involved in this terrible sequence of events, let's be clear for Canadians to understand that this is the only containment level 4 lab in Canada. It is not like we expect the Prime Minister, as my colleague Mr. Cooper has outlined, who's responsible for national security, to have to look after 20 such labs. There is only one level 4 containment lab in Canada. Secondly, what we know the result of this terrible breach happened is that now China has a level 4 containment lab as well, albeit with what appears to be sloppy workmanship, but by the hand of scientists who were working here at the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg. Why is this important? Well, Chair, when you look at documents from the U.S. State Department as early as 2005, they identified the Academy of Military Medical Sciences as a threat having links to a biological weapons program. And when we begin to understand this, why is the Academy of Military Medical Sciences important? Because scientists from that particular academy were able to gain access, as my colleague said, in an unfettered fashion and an unsupervised fashion to the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg. Once again, we need to understand that the Academy of Military Medical Sciences is the scientific arm of the People's Liberation Army, which is partly tasked with biology-enabled weapons. Biology-enabled weapons, bioterrorism. Further to that, Chair, as we said, we know very easily that a PLA scientist had access not just to the lab and to do scientific work and create papers in conjunction with Dr. Chu, but also in photos wearing a PLA uniform with, again, terrible and astonishing contacts with a major general of the PLA also, who wrote papers with Dr. Chu. Understanding all of these things really points to the fact that there is a serious and credible threat to the democracy here in Canada and to our economy and to our safety as well. Finally, Chair, to sum up, I would also say that the U.S. Centers for Disease Control states that Ebola is a Category A bioterrorism weapon. We know on March 31st, 2019, that Ebola was sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology at the behest first in October, 18th of October 2018, of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, supervised by Dr. Chu here in Canada. Oddly enough, on the 19th of October 2018, Dr. Chu made a visit to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. One of many visits, at least 5 visits in 2017, 2018, of which Dr. Chu was not entirely open with respect to the Public Health Agency of Canada, knowing that Dr. Chu was visiting the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and of course they actually paid for her trip as well. So is this a serious and credible threat to Canada? Yes, it is. Were there significant security breaches at Canada's only level 4 laboratory? Yes. Is the Prime Minister of Canada singularly and uniquely responsible for the national security of Canada? The answer to that is yes. We need to get to the bottom of this scandal, Chair, and that is exactly why I tend to support this motion, as we have an opportunity and an obligation to hold this government to account as the official opposition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Monsieur Berthold, sur la motion, s'il vous plaît.